Why was ABC Tier 1? Well, let's find out. On October 21st, 2016, North America received a structure deck known as Structure Deck Seto Kaiba. This was one of the two structure decks released on the same day, with the other being Structure Deck Yugioh. However, this was by far the more competitive release. This structure deck contained many infamous Kaiba cards, but more specifically contained the new ABC archetype, a set of quote-unquote retrains of the original XYZ Union Fusion monsters, but they were actually good this time. A Assault Core, B Buster Drake, and C Crush Wyvern all had similar effects, but approached them in different ways. A Assault Core, when equipped, made the equipped monster unaffected from monster effects, where B gave spell immunity and C did the same for traps. Additionally, when each was sent from the field to the graveyard, they can either recur a union from the grave with A, search a union from deck with B, or special summon a union from hand with C. The thing with these monsters were they seemed really bad on paper, and you'd be right if you assumed that. The thing is, however, when you have access to all three pieces, whether on your field or graveyard, you can banish all three from either area for ABC Dragon Buster, arguably one of the most infamous and powerful boss monsters ever printed. There were a few reasons why this card was so absurd. First, it had an extremely easy to fulfill condition to summon itself because you can banish from the graveyard to summon it. Secondarily, it had an amazing disruption effect. While discarding a card to banish doesn't sound amazing at first glance, the fact that it banished instead of destroying got around so many floating effects, especially during a time where the game wasn't as much revolved around heavy negate boards, and more so floating constantly and overwhelming your opponent with resources until you can deplete their life points to 0. The third thing, however, which is the most important part of this card's viability, is its ability to tribute itself during the opponent's turn to summon 3 banished Light Machine Union monsters, almost always being an A, a B, and a C. Not only does this make ABC Dragon Buster so much more sticky and annoying to get around, as anytime the opponent would try to clear this card, they can just easily chain to tribute itself and get all your pieces back for another Dragon Buster the next turn. The other part of this ability that made it even more important, and that got way better with time, is that you're summoning 3 level 4 monsters on the field that all float in different ways. Let's think about something like Scapegoat for a second, which is currently limited. This card is powerful because you're summoning 4 tokens for link summoning, regardless of its taking a turn to really work. These tokens don't even grant you additional benefits other than the 4 bodies from one card. Now imagine one less body, but they're all level 4 effect monsters that float when sent from the field to the graveyard. And then when you're done with using all of them, you can summon another piece of disruption that grants you Scapegoat again for the next turn. In this context, ABC Dragon Buster was so stupid easy to summon. It had an amazing disruption effect, and if they can't deal with your Dragon Buster, you just overwhelm them to the point of no return on the next turn. This is why this deck was so scary. It put the opponent on a clock that like no other deck could at that time. And while yes, as time has progressed, there have been decks to both power creep ABC and be better than it, but in the context of 2016, there was no other deck like it. It's also important to note one other card. While ABC Dragon Buster made the deck what it was, the card that made getting into ABC Dragon Buster even more consistent and arguably one of the best field spells ever created was released in the structure deck, that being Union Hanger. This field spell wasn't just good. It did everything for the archetype. It gets you access to all 3 ABC pieces in unison with any level 4 light monster. The combo typically was pretty simple. You use Union Hanger and search A or C, get your level 4 light on field like Gold and Silver Gadget or Photon Thrasher, and then get out your A or C. Union Hanger will now equip B from deck, overlay the 2 for Bujinte Tsukiyomi, and get B's effect to search whichever piece you haven't accessed yet. At this point, Tsukiyomi will use its effect by detaching the initial A or C piece to discard your hand, including the piece you just searched off B, and you'll draw 2 cards. Now all you have to do is banish the 3 pieces for ABC Dragon Buster and see if your opponent can somehow deal with it. If we look at things as of 2020, this isn't as insane, and there are definitely more efficient ways to get out Buster. In context with 2016, however, this was more broken than anything any other archetype could do, and thus this deck became the best deck of the format. Now there's one more thing to keep in mind about this time period for this Machine Strategy, which is the deck came out before Invasion Vengeance, a set that supported a previous top contender and put them back in the spotlight, that being Metal Foes. And secondarily, Totally Awesome was released that came out and made Paleozoic Frogs tier 1. We also had the release of Dimensional Barrier, which at that time was the most powerful trap card in the game. So now that we understand what made ABC good and the prelude to their tier 1 status, let's now look at their somewhat brief history, starting with this triangle format. So long story short, Invasion Vengeance format played out pretty straightforwardly. YCS Anaheim was the big event for ABC, that format with them taking a W at YCS Anaheim with Elvis Vu as the pilot. However, following this, as a lot of formats tend to do, there was a sudden transition in the metagame where Metal Foes really started taking a hold of it, with its insane consistency, overwhelming MR3 pendulum capabilities, and recursion ability. Following Invasion Vengeance, DDD came out, briefly adding it to the top of the metagame until Raging Tempest. Now this set is important in so many different ways. Clearly being the set to introduce Zodiac in that grass look screener, it immediately warped the format. What's interesting to note is that while Paleozoic arguably was significantly better than prior because of its favorable Zodiac matchup and the addition of that grass look screener and the fact that Metal Foes could take advantage of the Zodiac engine better than a lot of decks could, ABC had the opposite reaction where they were completely power creeped by the one card engine tier 0 strategy because of their inability to deal with Zodiac Whiptail banishing ABC pieces, along with Union Hanger being almost impossible to resolve going second because of Dryden. ABC took the back pedal for quite a while, and it wouldn't be until September 2017 when Zodiac was decimated on that month's ban list that ABC could finally get back into the meta, now with the addition of the True Draco cards and set rotation. The fact you had 9 copies of arguably 2 of the top 5 best field spells ever printed, with 3 Diagram and 3 Union Hanger and 3 Terraforming and 3 set rotation, meant the deck was insanely consistent. And if you thought it was already rough to deal with the Dragon Buster, imagine how rough it gets when you combine that with a Masterpiece. This was definitely one of the better decks of that format until Circuit Break created another tier 0 strategy that power creeped ABC once again, this time being Spiral. ABC, no matter what they did, could not deal with Sleeper with a Spiral Resort on field and a Last Resort equipped to the Sleeper itself. And this is the same for a deck like True Draco, and thus both strategies were power creep. Even when Spiral was finally out of the metagame, ABC couldn't keep up with the newly released Electromite in Magicians, along with set rotation being limited at that time. And rather than True Draco ABC be viable, Pure Draco was just significantly more consistent and better at breaking pendulum boards than ABC Draco ever was. The real final iteration of ABC as of recording this was Striker ABC, a Go second variant that capitalized on using Clara and Rushka to make ABC Dragon Buster a pseudo one card combo in unison with the Striker cards for more removal, control, and link plays overall. It managed to get 3rd place at YCS Chicago 2019 at its peak, but never could establish itself as a top tier contender. At this point, it's clear ABC hasn't held up as well as other decks can, and it gets even more depressing, but stupidly hilarious when Assault Core gets limited in 2018. Oh, this in no way needed to happen other than a barely represented FTK involving Firewall Dragon. And as soon as Firewall was banned by December of that year, Assault Core gets put back to 3. Like, I shouldn't think this hit was so hilarious, but it's just so sad. Regardless, it went back to 3 and ABC went on to continue to do nothing. Except, we actually got 2 new Union cards in 2020 that are directly tied to ABC, Link Monster in the form of Union Carrier, and a new level 5 light machine Union effect monster known as Union Driver. So to start, Union Carrier is even outside of ABC an amazing Link monster in unison with Buster Blader cards to act as a floodgate, or to get to core pieces that activate in the graveyard, something like Block Dragon for example. But specifically with ABC, the main interaction is clearly equipping whatever ABC piece you are missing at that time. Well, this is great for ABC because it just makes Dragon Buster that much easier to access. I actually feel for ABC specifically, Union Driver is an even more crazy support card, and actually does a lot for the archetype. So this card isn't technically in the TCG as of recording this in April 2020, but it will be legal very soon in the upcoming set Eternity Code. This card gets around a specific interaction that makes Union Hanger a lot more fair, that being you can't special summon whatever you equip from the deck with Hanger's effect. Well, the difference now is if you equip Union Driver specifically, it will allow you to banish itself while equipped and equip another Union from the deck. So you may think at first this isn't that crazy for ABC because you can just toolbox into anything regardless. But what Driver does specifically that Hanger disallows is the ability to special summon whatever you equip. So now if you equip Driver and banish it and equip something else, that Driver is not restricting your newly equipped piece, which means you can actually special summon the equipped monster. This interaction gets extended to other cards as well. For example, Union Carrier can equip Union Driver, which will mean Driver can get you whatever you need to be able to special summon itself. The other big Union card that isn't directly tied to ABC this time around is Unauthorized Reactivation, a new card in the Machina Retrain structure deck that will equip a Union from your deck to a monster you control, but it cannot special summon itself. Basically a more generic Union Hanger. Well, now you can equip Union Driver upon its release and get around that restriction altogether. The point I'm trying to make here is ABC got a lot of new support cards to mess with, and while clearly we don't know if it was enough for the deck to do anything as of yet, it's still great seeing ABC becoming more playable. And then the April 1st 2020 ban list came out, and as if it was April Fool's, they limited ABC Dragon Buster. It's like, okay, look, I'm not one of those people to say Konami hates specific archetypes, but it's just so sad. Anyways, Dragon Buster being at 1 doesn't mean ABC isn't playable anymore, but it loses that ability of being able to put your opponent on a clock if they can't handle the first buster, because then you summon the second and completely overwhelm the opponent. Well, now the deck somewhat loses that grind game aspect that made it so appealing in the first place. Sure, there are options to recur your Dragon Buster like Daigusto Emerald, but it's definitely not the same without the second and third copy. And even with the new additions, they're just not the same as they once were. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to stay up to date with my newest content. And if you want to join myself and many others in an awesome community, my Discord is a great place to do that, and the link is in the description. Finally, if you want to support the channel financially, the best way of doing so is by becoming a channel member or a patron, where you will find exclusive rewards depending on your tier and more content to come. I really hope you all enjoyed it, and with that, I hope to see you soon.